Hey guys, welcome back. Today the prompt for Nodevember is biome, so I'm gonna do a coral reef, which, from what I've heard, happens to be the most diverse biome uh, in existence. So biome is like uh, different uh, place. What's the exact definition? I looked it up earlier, but it's example of this is the tundra or different areas of life life sectors. Off to a good start. So yeah, so I'm just gonna sort of use this reference with PureRef right here, as I always do. This is a free program that just lets you yeah, easily organize and access reference, and highly recommended. I'm gonna make a material, set it to cycles, actually go back to material settings under surface. Now that I've changed it to cycles, I can go down into settings and turn on displacement, and because we're going to be moving this geometry around, but right now we only have 4 points on this geometry, so we're going to use a subdivision surface modifier and change it to simple, so now it has a lot more geometry to work with. Bring it up to 6 even, and yeah, it doesn't quite look like we have a lot of geometry, but take my word for it. I mean, if we, you can immediately see if I add some displacement, just plug that in there, and then if I use this Voronoi texture, for example, and then plug in the height, we're getting that depth right there. And there, we already have the waves, right? But we're just going to make the seafloor for this. In this case, we can just, I think I'm gonna start trying to make that type of thing. So we're gonna scratch this, and we'll use the displacement here and there. I usually like to change the middle of the 0 so the plane's in line where we expect it to be. And yeah, so if you use this texture coordinate and then use object normals and then spherical gradient texture right here, we can position this in different places. So we can change the position and scale. I like to keep those as separate nodes. So, and then we have the single value, and then we can move that around, which is handy. And yeah, so yeah, let's we'll spread these out kind of, and yeah, with this, I'm just getting kind of an impression of these based on these images. I could have used more reference, the more reference the better, but I didn't want it to take up too much of my screen, so here we are, and is my, yeah, oh, and I've been invisible, so let's turn on my camera. Okay, yeah, so there I am. And yeah, let's go. I think I checked on that. And then so yeah, so I'm gonna start by making that, just picking out what I find interesting in the shapes. Yeah, so, and we can get a better idea of what this grain's gonna do if we just plug into the height here. So we can see it going up to there, and yeah, so we can plug it into another texture coordinate so that we can see better what's going on. And let's bring this gradient up, bring this down, and yeah, so something like that. Yeah, we could even increase this geometry more, I think. So we'll have to type it in. I think it caps at it this adjustment, or click a few more times to confirm maybe. Yeah, could change the shade smooth as well. And yeah, so we have that there. Can adjust this how we want. I think it'd be nice to can make the edge texture a little more interesting if we combine this with the noise texture. So I'm actually going to distort it just on the X and Y axis, probably not the Z. So so Z, if we look at the corner right here, we can see Z is up and Y and X go those directions. So that's what's going on there. That's what I'm referring to. Just to, get to those axes, we're going to separate this. And we can plug these all in, and this should give us what we had before. But I'm going to add distortion to X and Y. So, I guess we can just add math nodes too. We don't have to use a mix shader. And if I plug the noise in here, it looks like this. We can adjust that as well to this scale and detail or whatever. And here I'm just gonna add and then subtract, and so that will offset it so that when I change the position of this, it won't shift in some direction. And then if I look at this coordinate, we can see what this looks like. Again, I like using normal output, so normal is like the direction something's facing. So blue is up, as you can see, and red is going in this direction positively. So there's negative redness on this side, which is why you don't see that over there. And then there's no values underneath there because it's totally flat and it's going down. So it's negative blue, which shows up as black. And so let's increase the scale here. Then we could, gonna bring this in a little more. And perhaps I could can use another gradient texture, and this is the same pretty much. I just went through this whole separation thing to add distortion, but I'm going to use another gradient so it just looks like, well, you can't see with the displacement because it's cutting through that. If I took off the height, you can see it's a circle there. So it's still doing things. But if we if I want to see that, I can scale it on the z-axis. So if this is 0, it should cut through the whole thing. So change this to multiply. So now it's scaling through the whole thing right there. And if I change that to if I change the gradient type to radial, we have it wrapping around. We can try using that for the noise, and then using this to create a texture coordinate. If I Control Shift D, use a sphere right here, we can combine an X and Z. So now we have the same as like a UV coordinate. Wait, sorry. Whenever you have a surface that you're mapping to, use UVs. So starting in the corner, this is 0, 0, this is 1, 1. And it just takes 2 coordinates because you're just mapping to whatever surface you're using. And so when I combine these, I have this. It's not looking too clean right here, so but we can use this with the noise texture. So I'm going to actually bring these behind this, just like this. Excuse me, and then bring this forward. You can see the noise is now wrapping around it, and we can adjust how many times it wraps around by multiplying the radial thing, this texture which is wrapping around. So you can adjust how many times it wraps around as well by using a modulo. So that's looking pretty extreme. Let's take that down. and yeah. Maybe I'd like it to relax as it gets closer in there, so I can use a multiply, and then the sphere to relax this. And there's going to be a little seam over here, but it's pretty hard to tell with the noise here. There's a way to make seamless noise, and I did that in my last video, in my last live stream. And I'm going to be, at some point I'll release a video on seamless procedural textures. So I think you guys will find that useful. If I plug this in here, and then just color ramp, so that's what it looks like there. We're still getting the same distortion we already were. Maybe if I clamp this, huh? Yeah, so that's... Yeah, so clamp just changes things so that it's a positive value. So it cuts off all the negative values, is what I mean. And so we have that there. It's okay to have a little point in there. And yeah, so we can, and then the last thing I'm going to do for this segment of this is mask it out, and and just and we'll actually use the multiply here because we don't use it as a sphere. We want it as a cylinder, basically, an infinite cylinder that's running through in this direction. And remember, I just did that by using a multiply node and scaling this to 0. So the higher it is, the thinner the sphere would get, and then if it's at 0, it's infinite. So and to mask this out, I use a math node right here, and I'll use this gradient texture, and I select sine, so we can see there's a sharp mask over here. And this is sine with a IGN, not trigonometry sine. So you can, it's just it's referring to the negative or positive sign, plus or minus. And so this, all of the values shown as white are positive. So it just draws a sharp line from there. And with this mask, that's useful because then this is going to, there's not going to be a blend between this and another material. So if I use, principled shader, and then I have the mix shader, I can use this to assemble all of my materials at the end of this. So I have this, and then I just plug this into here, and then, so that's the ground input. Can I use this for the coral? And let's add some subsurface to make it soft. Most organic things have that. And let's give it more blue. So this even though its radius, it kind of corresponds to red, green, blue RGB. So just bring up the blue. Maybe decrease the red a little bit. It's the default is human skin, and that's why it looks red at first, without making those adjustments. So, and then the color also has a role in that. So be a little less saturated. Yeah, so there you go. It's the first component. And we can add. We could create another one of these pretty easily. If I I put this all in a group node. We Control G, so making sure that these are the last outputs, and then we should have one input here. Actually, I'll make sure of that by selecting this, so this all groups to one node, so we don't get multiple outputs right there. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll see right now why I'm doing this. So here's the group input, and here's the group output, and this is helpful because then you can repeat an instance this node group, so you can easily reuse this and position it other places. So we have here, and we can combine that right here. I like to use screen, so that ignores the black and then brings up the light stuff. They're in the same position, so this is doubling it. But yeah, let's fix that right here. So if I use multiply and then oh wait, I copied that and use add instead. So now we have that over there. Yeah, it's not the best view for adjusting, so just that. And yeah, and we won't get, if I did vector rotate, we probably won't get the results that we want. Let's try it out. So yeah, let's see if this works. So if I rotate it and along, say, the x-axis, like the Euler allows you to rotate on all of the axes, and the center should be just where these crosshairs are right there, so it doesn't have to offset that. If I change this, it would change where it's rotating from, but it's not going to show here. So why? Yeah, but it's not changing this because this is a displacement texture. Yeah, it doesn't really work with just rotating an alpha, if that's what you want to do. We could use a gradient, so and then just to give it an impression that it's offset, so if I multiply this, or actually let's add or subtract. So it's certainly affecting the base. Let's try subtract, so it's only getting more negative. That's kind of wild. So let's get an idea for what this is. If I use this add, and actually it's using mix RGB node, so we're only affecting that area. We can use that mask that we created, so this is the mask right here, that sine node that we used. And yes, now it's only affecting that area. We have that slope, so we can multiply the amount we're affecting it to just the influence. So now we have some nice variation there. And yeah, and it's right here, multiply does that, and then if we use add, we can, negative value seems to bring it up, and then positives bring it down. It's kind of opposite of what you'd expect, but I think, yeah, with our node setup, that's just what seems to be happening here. And oh, because we're multiplying this by a negative, is probably why. So yeah, which is inverting that. So if I did 0.1, it's taller now, and then we could bring that down. Yeah. And yeah, with the other one, we can do a similar thing. Let's make this one. So this is the other one right here. We can multiply it as well. Yeah, let's actually just copy these nodes right here and change the axis output here, so we have a different gradient. Go from this to this. Well, it has no input; it needs the input to show right there. So now the gradient's going in another direction, and so this one used X, this one's using Y, and we can plug it into this. still using that same sign, and then yeah, so we'll combine. We originally combined this, and this is like the modified version of that, so that's the new version we're going to plug in there. And now that makes more sense. I can adjust the height. And what I'd like to make next is a starfish, as we have here. And yeah, so that'll be fun. Hey DSO, welcome back. If I use screen and I change this to sign, we can, oh yeah, and this is lower, I think also because this, no, let's check this out. That's going in the mix shader right now. So yeah, we need another value in here. Make sure that's turned all the way up. So this is the mask right here, that value output. So we have that, those two parts, and yeah, so let's quickly give it a more interesting floor. To do that, we're going to just use let's use a Musgrave texture. So it's just another type of noise, this kind of noise, but there's something about the rotation of the material that makes it work the way it does. So if I yeah, so we have that. We can pretty much just use that for the floor. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. So maybe we could, plug something like a wave texture into it. So wave texture gives you this. Y is going to give you pretty much the same thing because it's restricted by, I mean, if I use coordinates instead and distort it that way, we can get something. And then Control-Shift-E again to bring that over. Well, let's activate the hotkeys. So if I multiply these, yeah, they're pretty similar. So that's, well, oh yeah, because they're the same axis, but so they are going different directions now, and they're going across each other. So that's kind of interesting, just to add a little more texture on the ground. And we can, make these values relate to each other by adjusting it with a value node that plugs into these. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. And then we'll just have this sort of bumpy thing on top of the Musgrave. So do that. So we want this Musgrave first, and then this on top. So with add, just and let's invert this, so we get white on top. Yeah, it's gonna be a subtle effect. There's stuff happening here, but it's negative, so you can't see it. But yeah, we can just incorporate it into this mask right here. And we have a mask here, so we can just use a mix shader in this case, using this as the factor. So we have this, and then plugging this in. Yes, whoa, huh. And then let's flip that. Yeah, so that's looking pretty cool. Let's tone these down quite a bit. So just multiply, bring that down. And and there is geometry underneath. Again, it's even with the displacement, it's kind of hard to see unless you go into like this kind of view. And yeah, so let's just keep adding more interesting details. So if I, oh, and real quick, we can let's check this material. Oh, that's looking cool. If I plug this into like this texture, maybe we can involve that with the bump node on this other texture, or maybe the roughness as well. Let's try connecting that again. So the bump node, make sure this is plugged into the height. The default is always normal for some reason. Well, I guess it, it's a fair assumption, but it just happens to always be wrong. We don't, I mean, we're getting enough from the displacement, so I guess we don't really need it in the bump, but we can use it on the base colors. So if I shift right click, click hold and drag, we can get, we can sample what that is. So that's how I do that so quickly. But to do that, you have to enable the Node Wrangler add-on if you go into Preferences. Guess I could have shown you how to do that in the beginning. I've done that in the past, but yeah, if this is your first video, Node Wrangler. So just type in Node, and here it is. It's checked, so it works for me. Yeah, so if I use a color ramp, we can flip this. And just because I want there to be just surface on the top bits, not so much in the crevices. So if I look at this, should we make this? I mean, this totally isn't like what I'm seeing here, but it's just kind of interesting to have. Maybe we could add like a bump to this, like an in and out, just to make it a little more interesting texturally. So a little bit of nodes. If I use that and then absolute, we can let's bring that to so we start to get a reflection at -0.5. Yeah, and we can use that to, so if I look at the normal output, we can see what it's looking like now. It's kind of less prominent, but maybe that's okay, because it was prominently wrong, right? So if I multiply the, oh, how am I? Thanks for asking. I'm doing good. Just doing a daily live stream. Got some chores done this morning. Just got to keep the apartment clean. Yeah. So works good. Yeah. Okay, we can turn that up. Oh yeah, that's looking really interesting. And how are you, DSO? Let's plug that into subsurface. Let's make it like green. And oh yeah, I'm liking this. And yeah, yellow. That's not too gross looking. We can just take it down the saturation. I think it's kind of beautiful. Yeah, so we have that, and then we could just use a Voronoi to maybe just capture a bunch of these. So if I use yeah, so let's try and organize this maybe a little bit better. So I don't know what these are called, so I'm just gonna organize them by color, just like that. So scale these in, just and use this to. I'm fine, thanks. I've got some problems with weight painting. Hard to find good weight, so it doesn't look like trash. Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess it depends on like where your geometry is, and then where you place the bones. Because if you have that worked out, you might not have much difficulty. I mean, it depends on what you're weight painting. If it's really involved, then it's rough. But like, is it for a character model? I'm assuming that seems to be what you're generally working on, right? So we have this here, and then we'll so we're just using UV. Doesn't need to be 3D. And then so let's control this. One cool thing about when you're posing, when you're figuring out the weight painting, is that you can pose the character and then paint it after you've posed it. Like when it's in a pose, paint it, and then you can see the influence it has at different positions. So that's pretty cool. So flip the color ramp here. Flip color ramp. There's that little caret right there. And I'm actually I want these to be pretty spread out, so I'm actually gonna increase the size, just have those sharp values there. And and this part's gonna be masked out, so that won't affect it too much. I mean, maybe increase that density more. Maybe this is closer to what we want, just to have more interesting textures. And then so that's a good spot to be in. And then so that's going to be one of our key components of this texture, and then we'll use another one for a smaller Voronoi for all these bumps coming up. So what can we make that look like? Like really small, but not so small that like the geometry is too limited to make sense of it. So let's see how generous that is. And so that should be good. And cool thing with this is like we have this material and we can just plug in the color, and we have some interesting colors to work with already. Well, let's actually use this one, and make sure it's color, and make the output. We can put it through a color ramp. Instead of RGB, we can use HSV. So that's hue saturation value. So the difference here is that if I make this a color, it's not going to go directly to it. It's actually going to cycle through the hues and saturation. So if I have green, it actually has to go through yellow to get there, which is another little handy thing. And then with these bumps, let's try to incorporate that into the displacement next. So we have these mixes right here. So this is both of them. Dissolve this, Control X. So if we plug this in to here, thanks. Glad to hear it. If I plug this in over here, can use screen. Let's we'll use a sine node for this output right here. And if we have this in a frame, we can well, never mind about that. So we can with the sine node do the same thing again. So we have this mask, and then we'll use this in the factor here. And but we want this to be underneath this part. So we actually want the mask from this. It's right here. This is a mask. We'll just use that. And this one's the height, the combined height of those two. And if we look through here, we can see which parts combined where. So now, yeah, we have this here, and then let's plug this height into here. And we're going to add this other part on top of that. So hit the add, and then we can adjust how much. But right now it's not plugged into displacement, I think. Okay, so we have this. Yeah, so we're gonna have to mix this a little bit later, actually, after everything. So what we do, we'll just do it again, and we'll learn it better if we do it a second time. So with this mix shader, we're using this alpha to control the mix, and then we're actually not going to use that, but we're going to use you know, this all gets masked out anyway by this right here, so we're gonna order matters, so we're going to put mix it with this right here. So if I use add and then put that in there, so now we're getting some effect there. I think we'll actually want mix for this, and then in this case we can use the sign that we made that I guess I deleted. So yeah, back to that, under comparison right there, and yeah, just plug that in there. Kind of like some island with two mountains, if they were blue in there. Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. Some interesting terrain going on, you know, in the coral reef. No, it's, you know, a lot smaller. It's they say it's, you know, one of the most diverse biomes in the world, so which is pretty cool. If I don't want that in the multiply, I want that in the mix, the factor for the mix. So yeah, so here it's just totally separate, and then we have I think, yeah, so this is mixed in. So this is totally linear. You can bring this out to flatten the top. And let's make that, yeah, we totally don't want it to be this prominent. So we can just multiply the height here again, just like we've done before. Then we can use add to add more spike to that. So if I increase this, we're starting to get, you know, something that resembles that. And this mix shader, okay, we're getting some results that I don't want. Oh, it's because I removed this mixture right here, and actually this shouldn't be affecting this part. I think it is because I took out this alpha for this, so that goes into there. Yeah, so now we shouldn't have that intersecting. Yeah, so order matters when you're adding all these extra objects. Yeah, and these again are looking a bit too tall. So let's, yeah, decrease that. And so this alpha is the difference between these two. So So now we have that, we're back to that, and then let's introduce the variation in these. And we can also lighten these. Notice they get kind of lighter around the edges. So if I use a screen, and then that, and then like another, just start over with another color ramp. So that's kind of giving us what we want, but we can make that a little bit sharper on the edges. Let's see how it looks in the final, like what's actually left there. Boy, the Venom yesterday looked really good. Thanks, yeah, appreciate it. I think the sculpt really helped with that, getting that done. I mean, it added to the effect. But yeah, there's making a liquidy looking thing with shaders is a pretty satisfying thing to do. So when you put it on a character, it can look pretty cool. Let's just turn it up. So just trying to focus on the color here. And then, but we're not getting the color involved in this yet, so what I'm tweaking here is pretty much nothing. So I'm gonna intercept this with a mix shader right here. If we plug this into here, and then let's track down that alpha, sharp edged alpha. So if I use sign right here, yeah, always makes my day when you guys say, you know, something that I made looks real good, so appreciate that. Let's turn that up. If you look at this, there's more like darkness in the crevices. I mean, we should add more height to this as well, so let's bring that up. I think we could do with even more height, so I'm gonna multiply this. Use those extents weren't enough. Yeah, so multiply, and then I like to add before I multiply, so bring that in there. Shift it back down, so it's stretching out and then shifting down with, so that's the difference between add and multiply. And we can also multiply by this smaller Voronoi to have some darkness in the crevices. So right here, I'm gonna flip this. And yeah, bring this in a little bit. So it's kind of creating some what you call ambient occlusion in there. You know, darkness in the under parts and the crevices. Yeah, if I Shift S this, CM mix shader, multiply, we're gonna get yeah, darkness in there. It's not so effective, right? We could also plug this into subsurface, so like there's more subsurface on the tips, which is more realistic. We kind of have like patches of grass. It's looking more like, unfortunately, like I can't really get it fanning from underneath, but yeah, we could add like dark patches under there. So again, using this. So if I use that and then another color ramp, Control Shift D, and then flip this around, so we can see what's happening there. If I add multiply there, just plug that in. Now it's looking kind of sad. the coral reefs are disappearing, and that's also the sad thing that's going on. I think I'm just gonna have to decrease the height of all this. So this is, I can tell this is the last node because this mix shader is right over there, and that's the last thing I did there. And then holding down shift, I can fine tune this. So that's totally flat. Let's bring it down, and yeah, let's bring that down as well. And I want to just make this starfish. I thought, you know, that's looking cool. That'd be cool to make, and pretty simple too. So let's put this stuff in a frame. So this is Control J. I guess I didn't name this frame either. Purple. Just name it by color, because I don't know what it actually is. And then poople. Poople. Okay. These are very descriptive. Orange, yellow. And then this stuff down here is coral. I mean, the ground, but the floor. Excuse me. And then, yeah, so to make a starfish, pretty simple actually. If I use, I'm just going to use UV coordinates, and again we're going to use gradient texture, set to sphere, and we're going to use another gradient texture and set it to radial. Mostly going to be working with this radial texture. Just need to get in that repetition. So this radial texture is actually wrapping around the corner right here at 0, 0, 0. So shift that over with add node. So change that to -0.5. I don't need to change its last position, but annoyingly it does slightly change the values at times, even though this is a 2D coordinate system, UV. So UV, if those are the directions, that's the red and the green in this situation. And if I use a modulo, we can repeat it. Oh, that's multiply. Let's get modulo. So, yeah. So you can see the effect that it's having right here. So 1 divided by 5. So now it's repeating those 5 times. And actually we want it to reflect on both sides as well. So let's use an absolute value. So that's going to reflect if there's a positive and negative, but which we don't have here. So we need to, that's why we need to subtract this by 0.5. And now we'll get some reflection. So here's a reflection, and here it's repeating. So we actually want to repeat it, then reflect it, I believe. So I'm going to bring these over here. Yeah, make this minus 0.5. Wait, or maybe 0.5. Yeah, well, we're subtracting. Sorry, I'm used to adding. Minus 0.5. Interesting. So actually, let's try using different, so if I use a sine wave and then I multiply that, I think I get a wave. Yeah, so same kind of result. The sine wave, it's like, if you've seen that, it goes up and down, and use it in trigonometry. And but yeah, so if this is at 1, we get 1 repetition at 2, 3. It's actually going into itself. So maybe, yeah. Well, let's we'll experiment maybe. Let's just reflect this, and let's just go back to modulo. So, how do we do this? So, if we have it's at this extra gray area is because we're adding 0.5, which I don't really need to. Yeah, we have this multiply, which we don't need anymore. So let's. So that just kind of offsets it. If I sample that, and then minus 0.5, and then we'll reflect this. Let's try putting that over here. So we sample that. And 2 gives it 5 times because that's 1 divided by 5. And what we're missing here is the darkness, so let's try to remap that with multiply. So yeah, there we have addition multiplied by 5. Yeah, so there we go. That's what we want. And if we were to, yeah, so we can make a starfish from this, combining with the sphere. If I use a smooth minimum, and then with this gradient texture, so this is a circle mixing with that radial pattern, you can get something kind of like that. And if I'm going to adjust this with a curve, I'm just going to play with this until I get a shape that's closer to what I want. Bring that down, let's see. Okay, let's try instead using subtract. So I'm just plugging these 2 values into there. See how it looks. So now we have this to work with. And yeah, so now we got a pretty nice starfish. We can adjust the size of it by multiplying it, hopefully. Maybe use add to shift it inwards. Might not matter so much. We'll see if it. Okay, so yeah, this side instead. I guess I could just scale it as well. Like I could have put a vector scale thing right there, but I guess you can do it with a single value. And if you do that, I guess that actually saves on performance. If you only have to change one value, but yeah. So let's try to keep it like it's kind of round in the inside. So let's try to make that as rounded as possible. Kind of playing with these values here. If you round this early on, I think that's how we get a shorter starfish. Let's bring that over to that side. Yeah, so we have that. So let's instead bring this in. Okay. So we're getting closer to the profile that we want. And then yeah, so that's looking pretty good. Whoa. It's we haven't done any displacement to it, so that's why. And then we're gonna make it a lot smaller. But yeah, let's try plugging the vector displacement right here. Just gonna bring this up. Just kind of see what it's doing. Change that to 0. Plug this in the height. There's a starfish, and then let's clamp this. So yeah, it's a lot taller in the middle, and that's because of this. So I guess we have to keep that in mind. It doesn't just affect the shape, but the middle. I guess we can smooth out the middle with another sphere. Yeah, so let's do that. Here, so we have a sphere right here. It's bigger than this area itself. Let's just bring it down with a color ramp. Do a lot of things to bring it down. Just gonna use it that way in this case. And with the mix shader, I want to replace it with a thing that I can adjust. So that's why I'm using this right here. So if I put that up to white, a bit much, and can round it out if I bring these closer, and yeah, and I could adjust the height here instead. Just keep that at the other part at a light value. No, actually, I want to keep that as flat as, if I keep it high so it caps off, and then I adjust it in here, well, that'll ensure that the center's pretty flat. Or maybe we could use, if I want a rounded edge, we can use two spheres, so one's masking it out right here, and then the other is going to replace the curvature. So you can just bring this down. Let's try using just a color ramp so I can visualize better what we're replacing. If I make another one of these, so that's affecting that area, as we can see, and we can bring that to the end, and then make this cardinal. So there's a curve to that. Bring this out, it rounds out the curve on the top. B-spline also gives a curve, but then the light parts go past the dark parts, so you have to add like extra pins. So that's why I'm using this instead. And yeah, so if I look at this, and I adjust this by multiplying it, and so let's focus on that curve, and then now I'm going to bring it up just by adding it. Yeah, so that's better. And maybe we could, well, yeah, we can't because this. If I copy that position, I can be sure that this is the same right there. So Command-C, Command-V, just like your favorite word processors, LibreOffice, right? Writer. But let's bring this down here. We can do this in a lot of places, but I'm just gonna do it there. It just feels the most natural at the moment. And then so that's looking pretty good. What happened? I'm just gonna experiment with another node. So Control Shift D, change it to smooth minimum. So you use Shift S, math node, or NA, that's what's underlined, and we can change that to the distance. We can adjust. So that point would come out there, and then this can be handy if you want to just have control over like rounding the corners. Yeah, I think I tried to use it earlier, but there's probably a way to get it to work with this. Let's see. It'd be nice to have the control, so I'm just gonna play with that for maybe a minute or so. So smooth minimum. And then if we just have this gradient and we have this right here, let's switch these two. Yeah, so we're not getting center part, smooth maximum. It gives us that, but yeah, it doesn't smooth out the edges like I'd want. Yeah, there's probably, I mean, I'm sure if you did it, you could work that out, but yeah, you figure it out. No, but we could try it just from when I had this. Okay. Last thing I'm going to try for this, and then I'll move on. But we have a value here, and then we have the sphere right here. So if I look at this, what does this look like? Yeah, so that's just totally white. So let's adjust the size of that. And then we can, I think we also need to invert this as well. So just copy this over and adjust the parameters. Interesting. Yeah, well, I guess then I'm going with the other way. So cool to see. And we can, yeah, add some more texture to this as well with, yeah, let's just use the principled shader right here, and with this, we have some height to work with, so we can make it so that maybe it's lighter underneath and then it's orange on top. Or opposite of that. And I change this to cardinal. And then we'll use the sphere to line the tips. So if we mix and then use the sphere right here again, and then we're going to make a new mask to control this. So no. Let's try to fix the curvature here. Let's take a look at that. So we have this, and if we end up subtracting it, we get that. So let's see if this my one shot at this is if we can adjust it with the curve map right here. Yeah, okay, so it looks like we can. It's not affecting the edge here, which was my main concern. So just flatten that top. Don't need this many points. I kind of complicate it by adding a lot. Yeah, if I keep this round, look good, but we don't want it to. We want this slope to also be nice. So. I guess that's looking good, and we're gonna shrink it down so the profile won't matter so much. Yeah. Yeah. So if I use a mix shader again, and let's track down where we can get the mask. So right there, and again we're gonna use sign to mask it out. SIGAN under comparison, and in the same section as less than or greater than, which I've used in the past. And then we're gonna mix it with the other ones as well. We can add sort of this scaly texture with Voronoi. So let's actually use distance to the edge, gives this nice crackle pattern right here. And yeah, we can make it something like that. Maybe we could plug it into like the radial, and then combine it with the sphere. So NX, yeah. So we have, that's kind of cool. And X, if that's X, then we should multiply that to just how stretched out it is. So. And we're gonna fade. Well, yeah. So this part doesn't exist on it so much. It kind of, shows up here, but maybe we can have that. Yeah, we'll work with it. So if I use this mix shader here, let's do it before we take off the tips, so this won't show up on the tips either. If I plug that in there. Yeah, we can just adjust the scale of that, and how extreme that is, we can just use a color ramp here. Let's actually make the rest of it lighter. Not that lighter, so let's adjust this, make it kind of, so that's better. And we're not worried about that because this part won't show up in the final mask. And let's kind of whiten the top part, kind of mask some issues. I always like to give, I think Starfish should have some bump, even though we're not seeing some on this. This one kind of looks like a, it looks like a plush toy. It's hard to believe that that's real, but I mean, I found it on Google, so must be right. And let's bring it down. So even maybe invert that. Yeah, so that's better, I think. And then we could experiment with other Voronoi patterns. So, I mean, F1 is really the only one I've ever found useful. I mean, smooth F1's nice, but if we make it kind of slightly random, like in between, you get some nice values that are kind of more organized. So that's nice. That's the final result for that. But yeah, let's make this more better. So if I adjust this, bring it in. Let's try smooth F1. And invert this. Try in some sharper values, just the size. And yeah, now let's line the top. I think we can just use this right here. Oh, you know, we could just use this ramp here because this is lightning in at the end anyway, just on the tips, but we want it in the center as well. Yeah, so we'll add another one here and bring that in so it's a sharper point right there. Not quite. So we can, oh yeah, this should be white or peachy. Yeah, just give it some saturation, some life to it. And then turn up the subsurface. And let's make the subsurface per neutral, so let's just make all these 1. See how that looks. I think we could have a little bit more red and yellow, so that red and green, so that makes yellow. So now that's purple. Bring the blue down. See what that is? Yeah, that's nice and subtle, and we're going to scale this down, and that will also affect the subsurface. The scale affects the subsurface. So, yeah, so all this, Starfish, we'll just name it Patrick. And, yeah, so let's reposition it. We have it here, but let's, yeah, change the scale, which is also we're gonna want to adjust the height as well. So let's change it to, so if this is 1, I think 0.1 will be a good size for it, potentially. So it disappeared. It might be messed up because of the height if we're adjusting that range. Maybe things don't line up. Yeah, because if I look at these ramps, it's thrown off. Right, so how can we work with this? So if we look at yeah, so that's a little disappointing, right? If I just change this to multiply, maybe, yeah, just different vector transformation. So all these are 1 now. If I just change the top 2 without changing the, so we're not losing it on the z-axis. Oh, and actually smaller is better, so maybe that's what was happening there. Let's try making this 10. Okay, yeah, so yeah, that was my mistake. I just scaled it in instead of scaling it out. So we want this to work with the displacement, so where's the displacement? Oh, it's right here. Okay. This is just sampling. I'm going to combine it with the other displacement. So yeah, Control J to separate there. I'm going to multiply this, just the height instead of adjusting the scale here, so that I can use it with the other displacement. So I'm going to change that to multiply. Bring that. After all that hard work, we got our Starfish just right there. Yeah, so let's make it a little bigger so you know that work paid off more. So let's just double it. And yeah, let's move it around. Oh, disappeared on the z-axis. So yeah, again, even though this is UV, it disappears. The sphere is still 3D for some reason. But yeah, if I could bring that up a bit. So let's combine it with this. We have a mix shader here, Control J to bring it out of frame, and so we have the shader here and we have the mask. We just need to plug this into the other one. So we have this Starfish right here. And instead of, so now let's combine it with the other displacement. So that's going to mean, so this is all that's plugged in here. Oh, and then we also have the material preview right there. Separate that, Control J. So if we look at this, we're going to combine it with that. We're going to have it sit on top of everything else. So remember, when we have something sit on top, we use a vector add. Right now, this is just taking the other vector, so we just have the material layer, not the displacement for that. So we can use this. I guess we'll have to use a mix if it's there, because that's going to affect it. Let's just use add and then position it somewhere else. So I think if you look at this, this is 0 to 1. So this is 0.5. So this is 0.25 and then 0.5 up. So yeah, so minus 0.25 and then 0.5. It's like we kind of know it should end up in the place we want. Oh, and yeah, this is negative 0.5, my bad. So yeah, I mean, this repetition is kind of boring. I think we could add even more. Let's go back to that mix shader. We're not getting that height all the way. I kind of like the idea of having the starfish just as an Easter egg. So actually we want, yeah, I didn't mean to put that in displacement. This is the alpha right here, so now that's being plugged in there. That'll work better. I'm still inheriting bumps from beneath it because everything's just shifting up by that color. So how can we smooth that out? We can just mask it out. So instead we'll use mix, and then the alpha will just be the sign, negative or positive Boolean type. So just bring that in there. And so these should be separate now because of that. Yeah, so here's the alpha. We can see the height of everything. It's pretty cool, right? And so that's kind of sitting at an okay height right there. Maybe we can make it even bigger, you know? That's more interesting, so. Yeah, scale it out. And shift it over. And yeah, so that's that for that. And then maybe we can make these little things. Yeah, so that'll be the last thing. Bonjour. Hey. Hello. How are you? Daniel. Welcome to the live stream. Nodevember. So if I have all this. I think I'm gonna try to recreate that. If I use Voronoi, so we're getting those bubbles there. And if let's just flip this. So white, goes up, and then black is going to be at the base, no change. So if let's try this Musgrave texture. If I sort of add these together, or we could do a linear light. to mix them. Thanks. Yeah, I need it. I mean, I'm taking pretty far. Hopefully I'll be done soon. And, you know, just hoping it has good rewatch value. Yeah, so linear light, you know, mixes things. Everything above 0.5 shifts it up, and everything below 0.5 shifts it down. So that makes it perfect for blending things evenly. And yeah, so with that, I'm just gonna put that there. And I'm not worried about it overlapping with that because we'll just mask it out. We already have made those masks. So if I use, I think I want like these crinkles to come from the center of that. We can't really get that so much with the Musgrave or the Voronoi, but yeah, I'm gonna try getting an approximation of that. So if we have the UV coordinates, then we have a math node, and change this to subtract, and we subtract the position from this. Now notice we have, these are the UV coordinates, where this black part's a negative and this is positive. But this is 0, 0, and that's nice because then we can tile something from there. So I'm just going to use a radial texture, and then let's just see what happens if I plug noise into it, right? So I have this, and I can plug that into this. So if I use that, and then just that. Let's just use a color ramp. Maybe we'll just have more predictable control. If I see where this is, we want it to affect the outer parts more than the darker parts. So yeah, we're gonna want to flip this, and then because it's multiplied, the dark parts won't even show up. So that's good. That's all what we want. Okay, so we're getting more of you know, an approximation of the folding effect. Maybe we could try linear light right there. Yeah, so maybe that's better. And then yeah, so this is spiky, and then this kind of smooths it out. And then we kind of get these flakes. I mean, there's this kind of thing, so that's cool. I mean, there's just so many textures you could pull from. And then, yeah, let's use this. If I use, so I'm using this, and then we have this mix shader here, and we have this value, and then we can just pull out a mask using the sign, so negative or positive, right? It is black or white. That makes it so that there's not like a smooth blend, which we need for materials, because there's always a sharp change between them. And yeah, so this should go into the factor here. And let's make that yellow. So I'll use this and just copy it and then modify it so that it meets what we want for that material. So we can just look at this to sample all of it. And yeah, so this is going to be yellow. And there's a bit more red than we want, so RGB, let's modify that right there. Can bring all these up to make it the subsurface closer to white. Maybe we do want like a little more red. Just it's a balancing act between those to get the right colors. And yeah, so let's see how that looks here. We still have to add to the displacement, so we'll keep that in mind. But we know that it's gonna appear in those areas. For now, it's it's going on top of everything. I don't think I want it on top of those parts. So I'm going to mask that out. To get that, we can remember that the purple is over here, and we have that mask right here. So shift right click to get that reroute node. I'm just going to pull it over here so I just can keep track of it. Easy to access when I bring it over here. And I have this sign node. We're going to use just a mix shader. And, we want this, where this value is white, we want it to make this part black. So just bring this down here. And so in this mix shader, we won't have it over that, but we'll have it over everything else, which is totally fine. You know, creates more variation in these areas, and separates these. You know, the more things you can layer, the more natural things are gonna feel. And yeah, so let's add the displacement to that. I'm just gonna do that with this add node here. And we made the sign, so this is gonna be where I add it, and plug that in. It's gonna be very spiky, so we'll adjust that height by adding a multiply node right here, as we always do. Or, you know, we do when we're unhappy with the height, which is most times. And it's actually not really the profile that we want, so I'm going to adjust this with actually a color ramp. So Shift S to switch nodes, and then I enter that just as I would if I were to do Shift A add. And then let's look at these. Yeah, with the alpha we can get a quicker preview because we're not rendering all that surface detail with all that subsurface stuff going on. I think this is probably messing up the mask, so we're getting that everywhere. So let's make sure let's make sure that the sign is plugged in there. Okay, so I think we are doing this correctly right here. So this sign isn't being affected by the color ramp, so that's good. I can bring this out, this will flatten it, and then we'll add another peg to bring it in. There. We're making these, but let's, you know, there isn't like a huge, we're making these, not these, so let's just relax that a little. Hey, just 3D things, welcome to the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. So, we're just kind of wrapping things up here, but I hope you find this stuff interesting. So if I look at this, how I mix it. Okay, so we made this mask so that it wouldn't affect that, so actually we're going to plug that in there. And yeah, so now this isn't affected by that. Also this starfish we want to be preserved as well. Good to see more people streaming. Yeah, for Nodevember specifically or just in general? If I enter Starfish, Starfish is up here. Let's keep track of that. I have this. Yeah, Nodevember, cool. Yeah, I've been doing daily streams, so you can check those out if you want. Yeah, I'll check your channel out for sure. Yeah, I'll take a look. You can I'll try to join you live sometime. It's a good sport. Just like it's kind of an assurance that I'm keeping it simple, and also like, there's a value in like actually teaching, talking through stuff while you're doing it, I think. So, yeah, that's all really nice. Yeah. Okay, so here's the mask, and we're gonna combine that down here. So we have this, and we're gonna do the same thing where we just take it out of here, because this is all just going to the factor here, so it affects, remember this starfish is being cut out there, so we'll just plug that in there. And now the starfish is on top. Yeah, so now we have this weird coral reef. Whoopee. And yeah, let's see what happens if I increase the UVs. Let's see if I just ESX to actually 4 or yeah 3, and then or actually it doesn't matter. Let's scale it out like this, and then on this side ESX 5. Oh, actually, yes, Y5, yes, Y5. It's a little slow, like, working with this. So, if I select all these, let's just, I think it's all mapped to UVs, so I can just, if I select that, except for that part, it looks like, so. Full active quads, so we're fixing that UV map, so it wraps to there. And, yeah, the UVs are stretching, yeah. Oh, yeah, as you can see, I'm just fixing that there, but, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And it's important. Yeah, as you can see, like I hand placed these, and then the Voronoi is an infinite non-repeating texture, which can be pretty handy. Yeah. So there's a starfish. Maybe we could. I think the height there is adequate, but like it's close to what it should be. But I think we could adjust that more to make it more prominent because. Yeah, I kind of made it as like an Easter egg type thing, but I'm giving a lot of attention, and I think it deserves attention, so let's try, yeah, just upscaling it. So if we go back here, adjust the scale, yeah, it's actually smaller, we'll make it bigger. You should add a Z-grain to the star first. Let's see. You should add a Z-grain to the star first. Yeah, you can elaborate on that if you want. So I guess we're in negative territory actually, so let's try to keep that as close to 0 while not being 0. And then it's gone. It just crushed everything. Let's try 0.8. Or 2. Yeah, so that's prominent enough. Oh, it looks fine? Okay, thanks. But yeah, but now suddenly we have this huge scene, right? Again, like this isn't how you would do things if you want to make it for games or video games. If you found this by way of that, procedural stuff is just really cool. And if this stuff like improves and we can, with like new like procedural modeling stuff, like it can save you time in a workflow. But like this stuff, this is still a subdivided plane. With displacement, you could bake out the displacement map and use it on something else, and then retopologize it from there. But it's not, if you're gonna make a game or a movie, this probably isn't the way to go. Displacement adds more on render time if you were to just model it out, and all of this is pretty repetitive anyway. So you could go on and make, you could just use like particles to create this repetition here, and then you can actually have like more accurate slope here. So there's limits on the verticals because the way I'm using displacement right here, I can't have this go inwards. True, yeah, but like it's a cool exercise, just to think procedurally and like think, okay, like distortion happens first, and then adjust the values, and then you can derive height and sort of randomness to create, and just use that to control your variations in color and reflections. It's like just driven on those two things. So yeah, you can make a lot from that stuff. And yeah, so real quick, just for fun, in the next few minutes, I'm going to model this out. So let's first actually make a starfish. So for that, I'm going to start with a circle, and let's give it 5 points. And if I fill it and then poke it, that's the actual command here. I think it's under face, poke faces. I might have added that hotkey later though. And yeah, so Control Shift V actually bevels the vertice as opposed to the edge, so that's pretty useful. And yeah, so what do I do now? So what if I subdivide it? So I have that leg to work with. Yeah, what am I doing? So I can, yeah, let's get rid of this, and then I'm gonna rip this edge and then merge that there. I guess I could use a modifier so that it's symmetrical, but the time spent doing that, this is pretty simple geometry, so time might not be worth it. So V, merge there, and then let's rip that. Or, actually, great approach to this would have been, okay, I'm going to just invert this. This would have been faster if I, yeah, so I'm going to scale this out, ES, and then, what am I doing? Let's dissolve these. What am I doing? So yeah, so ES, I just scale these out. Yes. And yeah, from the 3D cursor, really, it's better. Yes. And this isn't very exact, but you could just use individual origins and scale that in. And then from the 3D cursor, scale it out. And yeah, there's the starfish. Let's poke this inner part and just add a, I guess, vector displacement. Yeah, with yeah, like making a cube into a sphere using displacement. Yeah, played with that a little bit previously. I was having some difficulties with getting the geometry to working from the sphere and getting the displacement to work. It just kind of wasn't making sense for me. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see what people are doing. So bring that up. And then let's bring that out over here. Yeah, so just flatten that to the end. Just making sure. I guess I could just side select. I guess that is all there. And then we have that thing. What do we use? Sculpt. So let's remesh this. We can actually use a really cool thing that this has for some reason is radial, so we can repeat it a bunch of times. I'm going to set it to like 8, so now we have it on all these parts. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then yeah. We could increase this to get more detail. Yeah, you just learn a lot by experimenting. Yeah, that's what these streams have been all about for sure. I'm excited to see yeah, what you've put together for that. So yeah, experimenting is like the way to go. And then yeah, let's bring that out, just adjust the profile, and then you could reduce this radial so there's less repetition, you know. Well, okay, let's use like clay strips. How about that's usually what I use to load up mass. And sure, I mean, I could just check out your channel, right? Does that work? Change the fall off here. And then I guess I can, yeah, turn off the radial thing, and then probably use, you know, the pose brush gets a little slow with high geometry. I can look at that. Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'll give you a follow, and hopefully I'll get notified when you go live. So, yeah, thanks for checking this out. It was nice to see what other people are coming up with for Nodevember. So, right here, it's not so smooth. Maybe I need to adjust the settings in here. Not really sure which. Auto smooth. Let's try. Nope. Okay, yeah, that's better. And then yeah, we're doing symmetry, and that's kind of don't always need that. We're using a different type of symmetry, so that was kind of conflicting with what we were doing. Yeah, I don't know. I usually don't do this, but I don't know. I just had a little extra time, so it's kind of interesting to, you know, because some people will come on here and they'll be like, you know, why don't you just model the whole thing? And it's like, yeah, that would be a lot simpler. Yeah, but Nodevember is, you know, it's just for the exercise, or, I mean, yeah, there are things like, you know, transformations and stuff that you can't do as easily, maybe with sculpting or something. I mean, it would be faster and more, you know, because procedural stuff makes sense if it allows you to like reuse stuff, actually. Yeah, but yeah, this stuff isn't really made for that, and we're not getting that extra view because it's normals, I think. Let's check the normals on these. Yeah, so these are flipped, so shift N maybe. Inside. Okay, interesting for some. I guess because it doesn't know the difference because this part's flat. So it's just all that. I guess I could just extrude this down and then scale it. But yeah, it's nice to show people like how you know, if they're new to this somehow, because, you know, there's a mix of, from the chats, like it seems like there's a mix of where people are coming from with these. Hop into Aaron's VC. Okay. Yeah, I joined the Discord, Aaron's Discord. He commented on one of my previous ones, but how useless vector, really? That's funny. Yeah, that'd be cool. Wait, so just to make sure, what's VC? yeah, I'm kind of a streaming noob, so yeah. But that's funny, like, because he's made so many videos on vector displacement to say that. That's funny. Yeah, his tutorials are, yeah, really, really great. And then let's just create the ground. Like a lot of this, so freeform, you would start with sculpting and then probably retopology. So yeah, I mean, in that case, you might even use displacement for the ground as like a base mesh or something. But, just use normals or. If we're to do these, I guess like a quick geometric way to do it is voice chat. Okay. Yeah, not sure how to find that exactly, but yeah. If you want to leave a comment on this video, I think you can't leave links in the chat, but in the comments, so maybe that opens after this. If I do grid fill and then subdivide it, I guess I could have added more segments, and then with this, let's just use that fall off. So we have that, and now if we select all these faces, and then press inset, and then inset again, we can set individual ones. There might be some overlapping geometry here, but, and then if I change this to individual, we get, you know, something like that. Yeah, this isn't perfect. I'm kind of, yeah, just doing stuff fast for the stream under pressure, but on Blender Nest, okay, I'll have to look that up, what that's about, but yeah, that'd be cool. Oh, voice channels. Oh yeah, totally. Okay, yeah, sorry, I've done that before, I swear. Yeah, but okay, cool. Sounds good. Thanks for letting me know. Just 3D things. So, okay, what happens if we try to sculpt this? If I this might crash it. Hopefully I saved recently, right? Yeah, but I've been experimenting with, let's see if this is stalling as well. Okay, so I'm good there. Yeah, fix my hair. There's yeah, I've been trying to do some other uses for shaders and stuff in my videos. Oh yeah, oh, it messes it up because this empty bottom right down here, so let's just fill that up. Non-manifold geometry messes things up. So, like I did one where I tried to make a castle with volumetrics, which, yeah, that was an interesting one, and made a yeah, and then I did some with Eevee. My last one was just an Eevee, just doing like a material transformation, but yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot you could do with nodes, and I guess it says on the page for Nodevember that you can even make like music for Nodevember if you want. So, trying to keep it free. I mean, it's, yeah, knowing that, it makes it easier to do regularly when you have less pressure. Like, yeah, and streams being like less clear cut makes things like more laid back. I've kind of felt, and that's kind of helped me like stick to it, and not really worry so much about getting good. So. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, that'll be cool to see what you've made, and yeah, So this is kind of interesting. If I just shift this up. Just get that swoop. The swoop is going the other direction. It's kind of like the common Christmas tree mistake that people make, where the branches are all going down, where like pine trees, if you actually look at them, swoop up. But yeah. Yeah, so this is good. But yeah, these are still swooping the other direction. But good thing that's not what this stream is even for, right? So it's just compare. And just, you know, if I show this in a thumbnail anywhere, maybe just slide this in, make it look like I'm a lot better at this than I am. And then let's figure out which one of these is connected to this. Oh yeah, it's the purple one, so just copy that. I like that you can just copy and paste between these shaders. And then, yeah, so the combined shader right here. Basic math for shaders, things like vector displacement is more like a stream thing. Okay, well, it just crashed. I think I did save recently, so I'm not totally broken, but nah, that's too bad. So, yeah, you can see 2 concurrent, nice. Good watch time. Usually I get more views, you know, in the evening, so that's not surprising. But, cool. I'm gonna call it for that, but yeah, I'll check out your stuff. Yeah, vector displacement's a stream thing. Thanks for music. Yeah, I'll have to dig deeper into that stuff. Yeah, here's my desktop. Welcome. Yeah, so take care. Thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, thanks for all the info. And thank you, Just to Read You Things, Daniel De Silva, DSO Dragus, and anybody else who's watching. Thanks for stopping by. And